So to prove that this formula really works, let's do a couple of problems. A couple of quadratic equations using this new method. Now for this one, we can see it's easily factorable. This would be x plus 7 times x plus 1 equals 0, and x would be negative 7 or negative 1. But let's prove that we can get that with the quadratic formula. X equals, so a here is 1, b is 8, and c is 7. Negative b is negative 8 plus or minus the square root of b squared is 8 squared, so that's 64, minus 4 times a of 1, that's the coefficient of x squared, times c of 7, all over 2 times a of 1, so all over 2. So this will simplify to negative 8 plus or minus the square root. 4 times 1 times 7 is going to be 28. 64 minus 28 is 36. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 2. And what is the square root of 36? It is 6. So this becomes negative 8 plus or minus 6 over 2. So we have two answers here. Negative 8 plus 6 over 2 will be negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. Negative 8 minus 6 over 2 will be negative 14 over 2, which is negative 7. So there we go. Exactly what we would have gotten if we had simply factored this into x plus 7 times x plus 1. X is negative 1, or x is negative 7. This quadratic formula works. Let's do another one using this method. X equals negative b. Now, since b is negative 6, that's the coefficient of x. Negative b will be positive 6. Be careful with that. Plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared. Negative squared is a positive, so that's positive 36 minus 4 times a of 1 times c of 8 over 2 times a of 1, so all over 2. So this is 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 32. So plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. Square root of 4 is 2, so this is 6 plus 2 over 2. 8 over 2 would be 4, or it could be 6 minus 2 over 2. 4 over 2 would be 2. Okay, so now it definitely works for these two problems, but it might not be faster than factoring because these are such simple problems to factor. But if we have a more complicated factoring problem with a coefficient other than 1 of x squared, where you would have to set up that x in order to factor this, this might actually be the fastest method because we can do it all in one step. Negative b, negative 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 49, minus 4 times a times c over 2 times 2 over 4. And now we just have to simplify this. Negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus, let's see, 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. 49 minus 24, in fact, let's do this in one step. 49 minus 24 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5. And our two solutions are negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2 over 4 will be negative 2 over 4, which is negative 1/2. Negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Negative 12 over 4 will be negative 3. There we go. This probably would have taken longer to factor than if we were to use the quadratic formula. Now, here's where you're really going to see how much time the quadratic formula can save you. Because this problem is not factorable. So in order to solve it without this formula, you would have to use completing the square. And since there is a coefficient in front of x squared, completing the square would take a long time. It'd take probably this whole page of work just to solve it. But look at how much shorter the quadratic formula is going to be. Let's see if you can remember it. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And look, now we'll be done in just one more step. Negative 7 plus or minus the square root of all this. Let's see. Here we have 4 times 4 is 16 times negative 5 is negative 80. But we have 49 minus negative 80. That's 49 plus 80, which is the square root of 49 plus 80 is 129. And guess what? We are done. This cannot be simplified any further. The square root of 129 cannot be broken up into any square roots of perfect squares. So the two solutions for x are negative 7 plus the square root of 129 over 8 and negative 7 minus the square root of 129 over 8. Look at that. In just 2 lines, we were able to do what completing the square would have taken a whole page to do. Okay, for this one, same thing. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c fraction doesn't really change too much there over 2a. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8 times negative 9 over 2. All right, this is a little trickier. Well, let's just see. We have 8 times 9 over 2. What's 8 times 9? That's going to be 72. Over the 2 will be 36. So this will be, because of this negative here, negative 36. So we have 36 minus negative 36. That's 36 plus 36, which is 72. So negative 6 plus minus square root of 72. Okay, and now this time the square root of 72 can be simplified. Remember to do this. Highest perfect square would not be 4. It would be 30. Negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 times square root of 2. That's 6 square root of 2. And since all of these numbers are divisible by 2, you can simplify once more. And in fact, we can also put the negative right in front of the whole fraction like that. Actually, nope. Sorry, but You cannot do that. That would be a bad idea because it would throw off this plus minus here. So keep the negative in the numerator. Okay. But we can divide everything by 2. We'll get negative 3 plus or minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. All right, let's do one more problem. So now, unlike with factoring or completing the square, when you're solving using the quadratic formula, you actually don't have to factor out a negative number here first, because we can have a negative a in the formula. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times negative 5 times the negative 7. Negative times negative will be positive, so this is going to be a positive number. 4 minus 5 times 7 is 35, times 4 is 140 over 2a, so over negative 10. So here we have the square root of negative 136. That's going to be I times the square root of positive 136. 136 can be broken up into 4 times 34. So we'll have I times the square root of 4 times the square root of 34, which will be I times 2 times the square root of 34, which will be 2I square root of 34 over negative 10. And then the last step here, as you can see, we have 2 here, 2, and 10 here, so we can divide everything by 2. At the same time, to get rid of the negative in the denominator, we can just multiply or divide everything by a negative. We can negate everything. So what we're basically going to be doing is dividing by negative 2. Divide everything by negative 2. Since this is plus or minus, if we negate that, it's still going to be plus or minus, since it could be either one to begin with. And negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Next time, we're going to continue using the quadratic formula, but only a certain piece of it. Let's take a quick peek. We're going to be looking at the significance of this part in blue, b squared minus 4ac.